You probably thought the next game we'd be talking about was Super Mario Bros., didn't you? Well, yes, that's the game everyone thinks of when talking about Super Mario, but before that game would come out in 1985 and revolutionize the entire video game industry, we got this game, Mario Bros., released in 1983 for the arcades. I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I did a marathon on classic Mario games and didn't talk about this game. A lot of mechanics from this game would go on to influence that of Super Mario Bros., and I don't think enough people talk about this game, so let's jump right in. Okay, before we begin, I guess I should be clear about what version of the game I'm reviewing specifically. This game has seen a stupid number of releases and ports over the years. Arcade, NES, Famicom Disk System, 2600, 7800, various computers, Virtual Console re-releases, Mario Bros. Classic on the GBA, sheesh! Now for this review, I'll be primarily focusing on the original arcade release, but I'll also give some love to the NES port that was released in 1986. For the curious, yes, I did go out of my way to go to an arcade to play this game on an original arcade cabinet. This is Game Galaxy, my favorite arcade in the Middle Tennessee area. I don't know why Tennessee, of all places, is one of the few regions left in the United States that still has running arcades, but I'll always be grateful for the opportunity to experience the dozens upon dozens of classics that line this building. If you happen to be in the area and interested in visiting yourself, I'll leave a link to their Facebook page in the description below. Of course, to make sure you all had game footage that would be a little easier to look at, I also purchased and recorded footage of the Arcade Archives re-release for the Nintendo Switch. Well, okay, that's enough of the version semantics, at least for now. Let's go ahead and dive right in. After the success of Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., Nintendo was looking to continue striking the iron while it was hot. For the next game Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yokoi would work on, they shifted focus away from Donkey Kong and more on the Jumpman himself. Or should I say Mario? Yeah, this was the first game in the series that would refer to the Italian all-star as Mario. I'm not really sure why, but the name Mario came from Nintendo of America's landlord at the time, Mario Segale. Now, I'm not really sure why that's the route they took to name the Jumpman, but could you imagine the ego boost Mr. Segale must have had learning that a video game character named after him would go on to be one of the most popular video game characters of all time? That's gotta be a good feeling, right? Anyway, during development, Gunpei Yokoi suggested the idea that Mario shouldn't lose a life from fall damage like he did in Donkey Kong. While Miyamoto was initially skeptical of the idea, he decided to go with it after designing a prototype to the concept. From there, they added the sewer aesthetic, Mario's brother Luigi, and changed Mario's profession from a carpenter to a plumber, as that made more sense with the game's themes. And, speaking of that, I suppose I should correct myself from the last video. In the Mario Cement Factory video, I stated that Mario Cement Factory actually predated the Mario Bros. Arcade game by a couple months, which is technically true, in Japan. Yeah, we actually got the Mario Bros. Arcade game in March of 1983, 3 months before Japan would see the game in their arcades, so sorry about that little bit of confusion on my part. So yeah, Mario Bros. Would be released in arcades in 1983 and see a good amount of success, continuing Nintendo's winning streak of arcade hits. And after you play the game for a little bit, I think it's pretty easy to see why. Mario Bros., much like the Donkey Kong games that preceded it, is a platformer. Your job is to defeat all of the enemies spawning from the pipes at the top of the screen. While you might expect to accomplish this by jumping on the enemies, doing that, doesn't work. No, instead you defeat enemies by jumping under them and using the platform to turn them onto their backs. From there, you can safely jump up and knock the downed enemy off the screen. Be careful though, as enemies will eventually recover from being knocked over, and will move faster after recovering. Bumping a downed enemy will also turn them back up, so watch out. As you might expect, the game starts out simple, but starts to get hectic fast. No doubt thanks to the many different creatures you'll start to see come out of the pipes. First, we have shell creepers. Slow-moving turtles that are pretty easy to knock over and defeat, not too bad. Then come the sidesteppers. These little bastards are annoying. They move pretty fast and require 2 bumps to knock over. Try not to let too many of these guys fill the screen, as dealing with a bunch of them at once can be a bit of a nightmare. At least the fighter flies aren't that bad. They're the slowest moving enemy by far, but they move around by jumping. That means you gotta time your jumps just right to knock them over, since you can only bump them when they're touching the ground. Finally, we have the slip ice and the fireballs. These aren't really enemies that have to be defeated to clear the level, but rather obstacles that can damage the brothers. Slip ices spawn from the pipes and can be bumped like normal enemies. However, if you let one go on for too long, it will eventually turn a platform to ice, making Mario and Luigi slip around more than they already do. Fireballs, on the other hand? Ugh. These are probably the most annoying obstacle in the game. After some time has passed, fireballs will begin to spawn at different places on the screen. The red fireball spawns at the top layer and ricochets all around the level. Green fireballs will spawn at the far left or far right sides of one of the platforms and travel very erratically to the other side of the screen. They can be very tricky to avoid and are probably the cause of most of my deaths in this game. I imagine they were made this way on purpose to prevent players from slow-rolling levels and getting easy high scores by grabbing coins. You may have noticed the POW block at the bottom layer. If things are getting too out of hand, you can jump at the POW block to knock over every enemy that's touching the ground. It can be handy to help clear a lot of enemies at once. You can only use it 3 times, so be careful to not use it by accident in a situation you don't need it, like the bonus levels. Now, I always appreciate these bonus levels that the game throws at you every couple levels or so. It's a nice breather from the action, where all you have to do is collect all the coins on the stage. No enemies, just you and the platforms. You'll score a lot of points if you manage to get them all, which may lead to you gaining an extra life. Savor that when you can, because you're probably going to need as many lives as you can get your hands on. Why is that, you might ask? No continues. Yeah, none whatsoever. Once you're out of lives, that's it. Game over, drop another quarter to start back at level 1. This holds true for the NES version as well. Quite punishing, even for an arcade game, though I guess I shouldn't be surprised. This is how a lot of early 80s arcade hits operated. I'm not a fan personally, but that's just how things were back then. Let's talk about the game's controls for a moment. While, at a glance, Mario Bros. May seem like a standard Mario platformer, that's not exactly the case. Unlike newer games in the series, you have no influence over Mario's jump once he's airborne. It's very similar to how jumps feel in the original Castlevania, to compare it to something. Not only that, but I guess because of the dank sewer terrain, Mario and Luigi also slide around when trying to pivot to the other direction, and when you're on ice, yeah, you'll go flying. The controls are definitely going to take some getting used to, especially if you've been playing a lot of the newer Mario games before this, but take my word for it, while the controls may seem hella awkward at first, it won't take long to get used to them, and after that, you'll be moving around like you own this dank-ass sewer. Speaking of sewers, can we talk about the presentation for a moment? Much like other classics of its time, Mario Bros. Is a bit minimalist in its presentation, but that aside, this game is so colorful. Everything really pops in this game and is easy to distinguish at a glance, something that I think is very important for an action-packed game like this. I love that little splash effect that plays at the bottom of the screen when you defeat an enemy, like Mario and Luigi are kicking the enemy into the sewer water below them. I was delighted to see that detail carried over to the NES version as well. Genuinely didn't know that effect made it to that version until I recorded footage for this review. As for the music, well, there isn't much here. Just the title theme and the game over music. They're fine tracks, but where this game's audio really shines is the sound effects. Collecting coins, defeating the final enemy, the respawn jingle. It's all good. For some reason, they decided to add a sound effect for every step the plumbers take, but somehow it's charming? Maybe it's because it's a funny sound, or it's pretty easy to drown out amidst all the chaos, but it doesn't get on my nerves like other repetitive sound effects in other games. The colors in the NES game are a bit more muted, and that version is also lacking some animations as well. Doesn't even have any of those nifty tutorial videos that play when a new enemy is introduced. A lot of people view the NES port as inferior to the arcade original for various reasons, but if I can be honest here, I think I actually kinda prefer the NES version over the original arcade release. Sure, the arcade version looks a lot better, but despite being a game originally designed with arcade joysticks and buttons in mind, I don't know, I think this game just feels so right on an NES controller. I also think this version is a bit easier too, which is a nice plus. It's just too bad my copy of the game on NES seems to have a damaged pin or two. With enough finagling, I can get the game to work just fine, but after about 10 minutes, the graphics start to glitch out like crazy. Thankfully, we have some alternatives in case of situations like this. If you have a Nintendo Switch and an NSO subscription, then honestly, you're set and have access to all the best versions of the game. If you want an arcade-perfect port of the game, you can purchase the Arcade Archives release for $8. The NES version is available with an NSO subscription, and if you have the NSO expansion pack, you can play Mario Bros. Classic on the GBA NSO app. I suppose before wrapping this video up, we should also discuss the multiplayer. It's actually one of the more defining things about this game compared to other arcade gems of this time. A second player can join in on the fun by taking control of Mario's brother, Luigi. When playing in multiplayer, you can either work together to clear the level a little easier, or you can compete with each other by obstructing the other player and getting a high score. Most of the time, I find myself working together with my friends and family, but the competitive side of this mode can be quite funny. Mario and Luigi cannot pass through each other. You can bounce off the other brother for some extra height while leaving the other player immobile. You can send the other player flying by bumping them from below the platform. It's pretty funny stuff, to be honest, and likely something that will be happening quite often, even when you're genuinely trying to cooperate with the other player. It takes some serious coordination to get anything done efficiently with two players, especially for me. I played a round of multiplayer with my friend Dom at the arcade, and a few rounds of multiplayer on the console versions with my fiance, and it was all around a good time. There's just something great about playing an old arcade game, you know? The vibes are just unmatched, and I'm glad that Mr. Video Game himself gave me that opportunity before changing the world with his next adventure. Mario Bros. Is often forgotten compared to the Superstars' more fantastical adventures, but if you haven't played Mario Bros. Yet, you should, even if you only have just a couple minutes to kill. Now, like I said before, if you own a Nintendo Switch and an NSO subscription, you really have no excuse. You have all the best versions of the game available just on the one platform, so go ahead and give it a try. I think you'll have a good time. And while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and get working on the next video. No more dilly-dallying. It's time to talk about Super Mario Bros. On the NES. So, I'll see you next time.
You'll fight well.
High score on it.
You put the high score on it?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.